Well, in my last video about tachikomas, I say something like this is not to play with the Hobbit tonk. I will make more things. Probably my next video I'm thinking on a goblin battleship or tonk. I don't know. It's not going to be a goblin battleship or tonk. It is going to be a battleship tonk, and it's going to be for hobbits, and there is a reason that this has taken me 3 years to make and not 3 months like this other small tonk. It is 7 times bigger. So yeah, that was all. Thank you very much to remain till the end, and well, bye. Roll credits. So yeah, I was being honest with you, this project, this tank has taken me 3 years, but I was not painting all of those 3 years every single day, just when I wanted, because this particular model is very special for me. I see this model years upon years ago, and then just 5 years ago I see a guy in YouTube who painted this tank in this exact same paint job. Well, actually I painted this tank in his exact paint job, point by point, leaking by leaking, camouflage dot by camouflage dot, and making all of this has taken 3 years. The only part in this video in which I do something with my hands is this. But also I will tell you some things that could save you time, money and effort, could save you from problems. And all of this video, all of this project, the tutorial, because it was made years ago by another guy in YouTube, I do not want just to steal his work. It is a fantastic work. Also, there is another person to which my special thanks should go. We will know more later. Chapter 1. Special thanks to Sergio Solo, which was or is the owner of this channel, and he has not uploaded nothing in the last 5 years, which is a bit a shame. I hope he is fine in his personal life. And well, this tank inspired me and his channel. He has an immense amount of techniques of how to paint things, which I consider proper. And this tank, this small Hobbit tonk, would be impossible if I didn't know how to make or how to paint this tank, even keeping in mind that every single dot of paint, well, maybe not every single dot of paint, but the dirt, the paint scheme, everything was replicated following his tutorial. And so he was quietly judging in the void of my mind, but not only him. Also this other guy, which was the original designer of this tank. That's the reason it took me 3 years. I just wanted to make this good. Chapter 2. How to Miyazaki stuff. Well, this guy has a really personal way of designing stuff. I have learned basically everything that I know thanks to this book. Well, everything that I know about design, or about how to design things like Miyazaki. Well, this is sounding quite redundant, right? This video is about just that. The thing is, in this book, which is his diary notes, he explains or he puts a lot of designs based in World War II, World War I, or the interwar periods, or even before in this Industrial Revolution, as you can see here. That is a monitor ship of the American Civil War, or this heavy tank, which was based on the Char 2C French super heavy tank, the T-35 Soviet super heavy tank, the independent British heavy tank, or that type something Japanese heavy tank, designed to cross trenches and make people's lives a bit more difficult. So he designed, after mixing all of those things, this thing, which is the Akuyaku GO, which is translated as Bad Guy 1 something. And as you can see here, this is the previous steps to design Porco Rosso, because the crew of this tank are Pics, because he likes to draw pics. Some images here remind also Nausicaa or Howl moving castle, and my actual tank is the Akuyaku GO of the short version barrel. You have also the long version barrel, but mine was the short version, and I wanted to build the short version because it reminds me more Hobbits or Pigs, or well, I don't know how my mind works because it's a really crazy and busy place. Yeah, and overall this is how Miyazaki designed stuff. This is a North American bomber of the interwar period. China received a lot of those to fight Japan in World War II, and he mixed this plane, which has somewhat normal proportions, with that fish, and he created a kind of chibi cartoon vehicle. Also, this other thing is a flag tower. These things in real life look scary because they are massive, monolithic, but he somewhat gives them the Miyazaki treatment, which is not to cartoonify the things, but draw more things. For example, they have a curious camouflage trying to simulate or emulate the village, and also they have some kind of whimsical shape, like looking like a fantasy castle, not like this massive thing. And overall that's how he designed things. But this is important. This is a real Panzer Tiger made by Porsche and the other the Henschel one. And you can see here how the pics here do not look like they belong to this aesthetic, because the tank has normal proportions, the pics not. This is a technique that Miyazaki on films or on other things he didn't apply. He make vehicles or settings or things adapted with the same size, with the same proportions to his characters. But this other guy, his name is Akira Toriyama, and he draws things like this. That's a Volkswagen Beetle, and this is a race spy. But he changed, well, he changed it because now sadly he passed away. He changed the design, chibifying, making them a bit more cartoony according to what he wants to transmit, what he wants to show. If the characters are more cartoony, the vehicles need to be more cartoony. It's an aesthetic which I do not dislike, I actually like it, but it's to contrast how Miyazaki does these things and how Toriyama does these things. By the way, credit to this channel, which is called Simmerit, who make an entire video about how Toriyama designs machines and vehicles. And by the way, I guess they fit perfect to Fallout because they have more diesel punk aesthetic, while Miyazaki is more steampunk diesel punk based on World War I or the interwar period. And these tanks are mine. I designed these tanks following the aesthetic of Toriyama years ago. I wanted to create super modular vehicles for orcs. I failed because they had too much parts to be printed, and also that orc just worked. That orc worked. Huh? It sounds weird. Because it is basically 3 parts. What I wanted to do actually is to mix the Akuyaku and Howl's moving castle to create the love child of Miyazaki works, which is this thing, which is almost finished. And well, I was working in this all of those 3 years also, not only in the Akuyaku, and I call this thing like Howl's moving Panzer, because why not? Chapter 3, practical stuff. Well, this chapter is just about that. For example, these rubber threads, this guy, Sergio Solo, is using plastic cement. Do not use plastic cement for rubber or anything that is not plastic, it will never glue. So for this part, and for every rubber thread for scale mold tanks, use cyanochrolite or Loctite, which is what I use. Now, Sergio is making a platform for the Akuyaku. I just love how it looks, but I didn't do that in my model for a simple reason. I consider that with this, which looks sick, it looks awesome, it looks more like a battleship with its platforms, etc. But the original one, again, it does not have that. But other model makers, like this one, make these platforms. I do not know the name of any of these model makers because I had these photos in my phone probably since 10 years back. So yeah, but again, it just looks beautiful and awesome. But maybe I have another Akuyaku model and I could do something sick like this. Not interiors, because although it looks beautiful, that is a sickly amount of time to do. What I have done, in my case, was in the original plastic, you have some planks made out of wood, well, plastic wood, and I paint them individually in different colors. And this technique, Sergio is using this filter, such as an acid, in order to remove paint. I learned this technique thanks to him, and it was a life changer. Here you see my turret of the side of the Akuyaku. And the important thing is the fact that the tip of the machine guns break. The original plastic is less than 1 mm long, so I recommend you to change that, to cut that, another wire, such as I have done on the GHIBLI Tonk. By the way, you see this guy? This guy is Miyazaki, and supposedly he is pacifistic, and yes, I see in his look.
My other Panzer is a tiger.
Well, I guess that was all. I have to say that if anything was revealed to me in this project is how much important is dedication and patience, because this project was not that fun to do, because I was replicating the work of Sergio Solo, step by step, dot by dot, ink of camouflage by ink of camouflage, using the same paints, the same techniques, making the same oil effects, rust, leakings in exactly the same amount of rivets, and it has a lot of rivets. And believe me, it was not funny. But if you take that time to practice, to learn, and you have a reference, you will discover that you have more things to do. Why I have to do this right now? Ah, yes, because it doesn't have a glass. Because in the instructions, you have the really smart note of put the glass and then paint over it, and I followed that instruction really good, really well, and then I have to fix everything when it was finished. And well, right now it has a glass. Now it's finished, finally, I suppose. Well, again, this is the original Akuyaku from Sergio Solo. It looks beautiful, and what? Why mine does not look like his? If I have used the same paints, the same techniques. Okay, maybe there is a workaround, maybe, because I have his reference and I have my shitty images, because cameras, his camera, my camera, every camera change colors. Apparently you can do this in Photoshop and take the original picture, the reference, and then change the tones till they look more like what you are seeing with your real fleshy eyes. Because if there is something that usually perceives colors well, is eyes. And cameras usually, unless you are a really good photographer and editor, do not replicate or do not capture reality as good. You really need a career or a lot of studies to be a good photographer, and I am sure that I am not. But with this workaround, you can create or try to replicate what you actually see. So if you have dedicated an immense amount of time to paint Warhammer stuff, scale models, you can try to make a photo, edit for example that on your camera or on your editor in your phone, and then use this workaround on Photoshop or in other editors, which could be not Photoshop. And well, and now I guess that was everything. So now we can focus on other stuff. Basically, as conclusion, what I have learned in this video, again, it's how important it is to persevere. You can find workarounds, it will take time. You can ask nowadays also to ChatGPT, it helped me a lot. You can use these paint techniques to paint Warhammer tanks. I mean the disruptive pattern camouflage of the French in the interwar period, because World War I tanks and Warhammer are two things which go hand by hand. And also other techniques like what I have learned from Sergio Solo. And also other techniques that I guess that I invented, but maybe other people in internet also. For example, those glasses are actually plastic, but I used gloss varnish, and that's the reason it looks like glass at this small scale. Other things, for example, this is an I3 Joseph Stalin, a model that I have made 6 years ago or 5. They have different scales. So that means that at this scale, 135, the details, the scratches has to be bigger, while at the other scale, Akuyaku scale, which is 172, the dudes are like 1 centimeter tall, the scale, the details are smaller, proportionally. In that part, you have the same amount of details than in all of the front of the I3 Joseph Stalin. So yeah, I hope that you have learned something in this video. And also something important, when you get bored of painting things, keep in mind one thing. You can use the original box if you got bored in order to drop your models there while you are being creative, or you just want to stop painting that and she will be waiting you later. Also, what is that? Oh, that is the other model of the Akuyaku that I have with the 20 pages. So if you want that one day I paint these, I could do it. And by the way, these models, these Asuka and Tasca models, had a lot of parts, so I recommend if you want to buy one of those, the one with the 20 pieces is in Amazon, it's like 137 American bucks. It is expensive, less expensive than some Games Workshop things, but it has a lot of parts. Maybe you are not into building models with such an immense amount of parts and movable parts, and you have this one which is $26, which is a bit cheaper, and it has only one pig, which I also painted. And well, that was all. This is my model, the one that I created, mixing the idea of the Akuyaku and Howl moving castle, and my idea with this is somewhat accessibility. I just show how to create in this channel the GHIBLI TONK, which has Ghibli punk aesthetic. You have the original Asuka and Tasca models in the internet, and also I created this model. I love how Miyazaki designs, mixing reality, historical facts and vehicles with whimsical themes, and I hope at least this inspires you to create something. Bye, and until the next one.
Immelman Panzer, det kom. Apropå måste